guys, and welcome back. So we're now dealing with the eyelid follow, and apparently it's probably doing too much of a follow and collision. So we want to have some kind of control to control their weighting. We know that the eyelid follow are 4 blend shapes, and the eyelid collision with the eyeball is a wear deformer. So if we can disable or have some multiplier on top of those weightings, we can achieve percentage control of how much collision and follow will be actually applied. I'm gonna do that on my master controller, so I'm gonna go for edit and add attributes. I'm gonna look for a new attribute for I'm going to create a new attribute for collision. So eyelid collide, and the minimum will be 0, maximum will be 1. Add, and another one called eyelid follow, again 0 to 1. Add. Okay, now there range from 0 is from 0 to 1 because that's what I want to change from 0% to 100%. Alright, so let's do the collision first because it's easier. The collision, because they're wire deformers, all we have to do is do a simple connection to the envelope of the wire deformer. Okay, let me clear the graph, and cannot clear that. This is a new graph. I was pinning stuff there. So let me add in my controller, and also the wire deformers. I can do that by grabbing the wire I created for the collision and select the wires. I can select one here and add it, select node and add it into my graph. So that's one wire, and I need wire 2. Select node and put it in here too. So we have 2 wires. All I have to do is use my eyelid collide to control the envelope of those 2 wire deformers, so that I can control how much they're colliding. Right now, so I'm expecting that there will be no collision at all. Okay, and I don't think there are any collisions. Just to be sure, I can go to the shape editor and go turn off the weighting of the entire blend shape of my face. You see, nothing has changed without that, so no collision is there anymore. And I can now use my attribute, eye collide attribute, turn that all the way up to 1. Now you will see the collision. Okay, so now I can do maybe 50% of the collision by changing the eye collide into some value like 0.5 or so. Alright, now I can move on to also use this the same technique to control how much follow will happen. And now the problem here is that the follow is actually being controlled by blend shapes, and they're already being set driven keyed. So let's go to the node editor and then grab the blend shape and show the input output connections of the blend shape. That's what it is, and open it, and let's open the weight. Now you see they have inputs for the following. I have left and right, follow, up, down, in, and out. I just need to use my controller to my attribute here on my controller. Let me add it in. And my controller, just making sure that they're all here. So this is my controller, and that's the blend shape, right? All I have to do is whatever is passing in, which I'm sure are set driven keys here, but I don't really have to know. I just need to have a multiplier before this guy passed into the weight. So let me go create a multiply divide. I'm gonna call this one multiply divide eyelid follow 0, 1, and then I actually need 3 multiply divide because I have 8 attributes and need at least 8 slots. Each multiply divide have 3 slots, so that's why I need 3. I will have 9 slots, but I just need 8. But I cannot only have 2 because 2 multiply divide only have 6 slots. Okay, and let me just open now the inputs and outputs. Okay, so for the input 2s, I just use my eyelid follow. All 9 inputs will be connected by eyelid follow. Let me drag that up. Okay, so they're all input 2s are all being controlled by the eyelid follow. And input 1s will be connected by those nodes. And how to do that is very easy. Just drag one here, the eyelid left follow up, drag it, drag that connection back to the input 1x, and you output x will go back there. And do the same thing for the second one, drag it back to input 1y, output y goes back there. Do the same thing for the other guy. And we are used up audits, so let's go to the next one. Again, the same process. This guy goes to input 1x, output x goes back. The other guy, and the other guy. Okay, so this one has been used up, and I need the last 2. So again, the same process. Oh, this one is in input 1s. I was doing that wrong. So input 2s, but you can do input 1, of course, and you just need to connect the other guys to input 2. But just for consistency, I'm going to use input 1 here. So this guy goes to input 1x, output x goes back. Same thing for this guy. Drag it backwards to the input 1y, output y goes there. Okay, and so what happens is we're just multiplying the original input for those eyelid follow blend shapes. We just multiply those values by our eyelid follow attribute from our controller, so that I can have this extra multiplier on the result that will eventually pass in to the blend shapes. I don't even need to know what's happening before. If you're doing like a different rig that you never use or you didn't build yourself, you don't have to know what's connected out to those blend shapes. You just need to add this multiplier. Alright. Now because my eye follow is 0, so no eyelid follow will be there, only collision will be there. But if I turn that eyelid follow to 1, then I will see the eyelid following. And I can do like 50% of eyelid follow too here if I wanted to. Okay, so that's the first thing we can do here, just to give the animator more control of how much following and collision that will happen to the eye, because sometimes it's maybe too big. Alright, let me zero those out so that they're not doing anything. Let's move on to actually just put 0.5 there, so it still have something. So the next step will be the eye open and close. So let me go create that. I'm gonna go for the shape editor one more time and add a target here, and this new target will be called eyelid left upper open. The left side of the eyelid, the upper eyelid of the left side, open. Okay, so it's gonna be something like this. I'm gonna open the eyelid more. Okay, I can do that. I can achieve that by using some soft selection and just drag them up and inwards, up and inwards. Okay, I think that's a lot already, maybe too much, but you can do a little bit of a exaggeration if you think that's needed. Okay, I'm trying to give it a nice looking arc. Alright, and one thing I did wrong here is I have symmetry, so that eye is also open. Okay, So one thing you can do is you can use my blend divider I gave you, this guy, and you divide it into two parts. You don't need controller or specified shapes. Just right click and select as right click and select blend shape node, so you can pass that in. That's the blend shape. And then grab the model and create plane. Two planes will be created. You can grab them all. Control G to group them together and modify center pivots, and then you can scale those in to make them go closer. Grab the model one more time and then make blend shapes. Okay, what that does is now it's gonna break my blend shape into two parts. One is for the left side and another one is for the right side. You can do that. Of course, it would be better to just not have symmetry on when you're doing that. Anyway, so let me delete my original one here, and I can rename this one the eyelid. This one is going to be the right side actually. Upper, open. And the other one is left side. Okay, if you don't have that, my little script here to help you break up that, you have to extract that out using some weighting thing of the blend shape, which, you know, if you want to know how to do that, just search for blend shape weighting. It's going to be underneath speed form paint blend shape weighting. You can paint out the weighting on the other side, so only this side will be happening, be changing when you drag the blend shape. But the best way is, of course, turn off the symmetry when you're doing this. All right, so I have the eyelid open on both sides. Let me do the eyelid close. So let me create a new target and call this new one eyelid left upper close. I call it open close instead of up and down because upper and lower eyelid are doing different things behavior wise if you call them up and down. Alright, so for the eyelid closing, I need to actually use the sculpting tool because it's a little bit complicated, and I also need to go use freeze to freeze the eyebrow because I don't want it to touch it when I close the eyelid. Okay, and then I can use the grab brush and make it big enough, and then just drag that down to the bottom, and then dragging the other parts down. Some of the parts are really hard to manipulate, so you may need to use a smaller brush when you're dragging them. If it's really hard to select the faces behind the eyelash geometry, you can double click on any face of the eyelash and then Ctrl H to hide it. That way you wouldn't be able to see it. It's like temporarily hiding some faces. Okay, and then you can drag things around. So my goal here is having a very nice and even distribution of the geometry loops. And another goal is I want to actually have that this crease disappear when you close the eye. So let me move on to the other eyelid, the lower eyelid. So grab the facial expression and add a new target. This is going to be the eyelid left, lower, open. And for this guy, oh, let me go back to my shape editor and turn off the upper close, so we can go for the lower open only. The lower open should be easy to do. Just go to the sculpting tools, and then we can mask the top one using freeze, top ones, and then holding down Control and erase the freezing at the bottom. Holding down Shift to smooth out some of the weighting or masking, and then we can go for a grab one more time and just have a fairly big brush and just grab the lower eyelid and just push it down, or pull it down actually. And when it's done, because the contour of the eye is the bow, right? So it has to also go inwards to wrap around the eyeball. Just make sure that you do that, otherwise it will look a little weird. When it opens, you will see a gap. Alright, so that's open. No surprise here. It should be very simple and easy linear movement. And then I need one more for the eyelid close. Left, lower, close. And this guy, it's gonna be sculpting to again. And then for the closing of the lower eyelid, because it's not physically possible to close all the way up. I mean, you can try, but it's gonna be really difficult to do that in real life, so I'm not gonna do that here. I'm just gonna grab all the guys at the bottom, just, you know, all the loops at the bottom, just drag them up to the middle, and that's it. I'm not gonna push it more than that. That's, you know, as far as I consider that, that's the extreme that the eyelid can go. Alright, so that's the eyelid the lower eyelid going open and close. Okay. Now one of the things you can do, of course, is here when the eyelid is closing, the upper eyelid is closing, this guy. And somewhere in the middle, it's actually getting really close to the eye because, you know, we're having linear movement. Oftentimes it's okay because, you know, we're just gonna go all the way through anyways. But sometimes when you want this, you may need to have, you know, some blend shape here to fix that this part. It should be more towards the front. You can do that, but actually do this. Just go to somewhere in the middle, 0.5. Okay, right click there, and add in between target. Okay, this in between target is the target in the middle. It performs like a corrective shape to fix that. Okay. Now let me use the word. So we're pushing things out to get better in betweens. Just a little thing here that you can do. So now if you go through this, it's gonna blend to the middle one here first. So it seems like the eyelid is actually forming an arc. Okay. A very small detail that you can fix. Although I'm not sure if this works with Game Engine, so we'll see. Anyway, so that's it. That's the eye open and close blend shapes. And we just need controllers for that. My controller will be duplicated from my original eye controller, Control D to duplicate it. And we can open that and delete that. I can handle duplicate it, and let's grab the controller here, go to vertex and scale them in, and also grab the bottom ones and drag them up and scale them down to make them flat. Make the entire thing smaller and flattener and go up. I'm gonna call this AC left upper eyelid, and also rename the other guy the same name with GRP, the group. Okay, and then I can Control D and holding down J button to rotate it. Oh, before I do that, I can actually set up the limitations in the translation. So go select the translation node, open limit information, check on translate limitations. For X and Z, it's not allowed to move at all. For Y, it's the default settings from -1 to 1. For Z, again, 0, 0, 0. Okay, so now it can only move up and down, and also only one unit. It cannot do anything else movement-wise. Then I can Control D to duplicate it, and then holding down J button and rotate that group 180 degrees. I think I'm rotating it in the wrong way. I could just tap in 180 or so. Now the reason I do that is now if you grab the controller and use object mode, this controller is facing down, the other one is facing up, so you can do this kind of like a movement. Alright. And then I just need to use those two to control the eyelid. I need to do set driving keys. To do so, you can grab the eyelid open and right click on it and go set driving key. That's gonna load the set driving key editor, which is actually faster than open that editor earlier and then try to load the driver and driven ones. You can just do that here first. The driver will be my controller here, load driver, my upper one. Oh, the naming here has to be fixed, so lower, then lower. Okay, let me try that again. Grab my controller and load driver. Okay, my translate Y will be the driving attribute. The driven attribute here on the blend shape will be my eyelid upper open, this guy here, and also close. They're all be driven. They're all gonna be driven by the translation Y. All right, let me key them first, and then grab my controller and drag it up, and then we're gonna go change the open up, and then key the open, and then drag my controller downwards, and drag the close up, and key the close. So now I can use my controller up and down to control the open close of the eyelid. I just need to do the same thing for my lower eyelid. The driver will then be the lower eyelid controller. Translation Y is the attribute, and the driven blend shapes will be the lower open and close. So let me key them first, and then go down, and then drag up the open, key the open only, and go up, and grab the close, and also turn it on, right, and then key it again. So now I can do open and close for the lower eyelid. All right, so that's the open and closing parts of the eye. Oh. So you can do word or object to have different kind of effects. Yeah, so that's open close of the eye. Let me zero out my controllers. And then for those two controls, I want them to just follow my eye directional control, this guy here. So grab those two groups, and then shift select my controller and press P button so that they will follow. Goes that and that. All right. So that's one thing I want to do for the eye. Another thing I want to do, the final eyelid movement that I want to have is a snare movement. Now you could assume that the snare is just the eyelid getting closer like that, but that's a very relaxing pose. What I really want is actually pushing in. The muscle is really trying to squeeze the tissues around the eye to go in. So let me do that one more blend shape. Grab the blend shape and add target, and this one will be my eye left snare. Okay, so for the snare, if you really take a little, if you can go take a little video of yourself snaring, you will see that it's basically it's like let me grab a loop here around the eye. So what's happening is, like, first of all, you squeeze the eye in, and because of the squeezing, the tissue is being pushed up and down, right? So they're also pushing things out here. So scale them in the Y direction, sorry, Z direction, actually X direction here, just a little bit. Again, squeeze them down, and X direction just a little bit, and then I can go to the sculpting tool. I don't need any freezing here, so let me go to freeze and unfreeze this area, and then go grab, and then keep lowering, or keep dragging the two eyelids to make them go closer. Okay. And then what I need to do is I also need to maintain the volume, because they're being pushed in. Their volume here will be having a bigger bump. What I can do here is, of course, one more time, maybe I can double click on the eyelashes and Control H to hide those, so that I can focus on what's happening here. I'm gonna grab those two lines, those two rows of lines and those ones, and then I push them forward, and the bottom one can also go forward just a little bit to form a bigger bump here in the middle, because that's the tissue being pushed and squeezed over there, so they will have like a bigger or a visible bump because of the pushing, and you cannot do that with simple eyelid movements up and down, right? So that's why we're doing this guy. We're really creating this pose. Okay, let me save my file. Eyelid 2. Okay, and let me go back to my shape editor, and I can dock it here actually. And take a look at that sneer. So you can feel that there is some pressure around the eye when you do that, right? So that's what the sneer is. We need to do some more tweaking on the contour. Oh, let me shift edge to show the eyelashes. Make sure that everything is okay here. They're still kind of like connected. Okay. Kind of like to see more volume up here, so let me drag that up more. It's gonna be a really nice if you can do that sneer thing. That little movement or pinching around the eyelid really helps for a lot of facial expressions. So I would spend enough time to do this. Okay. All right, I think that's pretty much there. And I just need to create an attribute to control that. It's gonna be a sneer attribute on my eye directional control. Sneer. The value will be from 0 to 1, and then because my attribute here, the blend shape, is also from 0 to 1, I can safely go for a connection here. So I can use my controller, add it in, and then the blend shape, add that in, and connect from, oh, it wasn't there. I wonder where did I add it. Let me try that again. I must have added to something else. Sorry about that. Add attribute, right, sneer, 0 to 1, and add. Okay, it's okay. I don't know where it is, but that extra attribute wouldn't hurt anything else. Oh, not the envelope. Sorry about that. It's gonna be on the sneer blend shape target. There. Okay. So now I can use that attribute to control the snare. Okay. Now one last thing that we can do is the control of the pupil. We can do it because the pupil is a geometry. Here, this guy. Right, I can actually create a blend shape for that real quick. So a new target. Oh, actually that target will not be on my facial blend shape because that's for the head geometry. I need to grab my iris geometry and create a new blend shape. Let's call this Sophia. Eye, facial, blend expression, and add a new target. And this is going to be iris dilation. And for this guy, what I'm going to do here is just grab this edge loop and use a fairly big soft selection and just make it go bigger. I can make the fall off a little bit smaller so I can actually shrink a lot of things inwards. And that should be big enough. So now if you look at it, it's like dilating, right? And I need something to control this, and that's gonna be actually the scale of my eye directional control. But when I scale it, you see the joint is rotating a little bit. That's because of the Eki handle right underneath it. So what I'm gonna do is I'm powering the Eki handle to the group instead of the controller, and grab the controller and the Eki handle. I'm just gonna do a rigging constraint and then point. That way the scale will not affect it at all, but the movement still works. Okay, so let me set driving key on that blend shape. So right click on it and set driving key. The driver will be my controller, and the driven one will be, of course, the blend shape. The driving attribute will be scale X or Y or Z. It doesn't matter because I'm going to do this to control it anyways. So let me key it first and then scale up my controller maybe to something like 1.5. Okay. And then I'm gonna drag my blend shape up to and then key it. And then also drag it downwards to maybe 0.5. And then the tricky thing here is you can actually tap in -1 to make it go in, but -1 maybe is too much. Maybe -0.5 should be small enough. And then key it again here. So now if I scale up and down my eye directional control, I can also dilating or shrinking the pupil. Alright. So with those, we're basically done with the eyelid control. We have spent 2 tutorials or 2 classes on this guy because the eye is important, and there are of course more things you can do. You can have individual controls to control individual part of the eye, but to me that's not really that important. A lot of times the animator would like to have the shape of the eyelid very smooth, and even you don't want to have a wavy-like result almost all the time, and when that happens, that's considered bad animation anyways. So that's why we don't really need to create individual controls like what we did on the eyebrow to control different part of the eyebrow, because that's not that important for the eyelid. One little cleanup would be I can actually move my eyebrow controller also to the front and maybe make it smaller. Just position it really close to my eye controls, so that's all the controls are really close to each other, so that I can do quick adjustments to the facial expression, do all sorts of stuff, and maybe do some sneer there, right? And then I can maybe drag that down to do some very angry expressions. It shouldn't look up though. Maybe I'm snaring too much, so lower it down a little bit. Right. Okay. And also do some front here. Right. Do the same thing on the other side. Maybe I need to open the eyelid more here. Okay. So that's some sort of angry face. Or I can do some sort of startle. Right. And because of the startle, I can actually change the pupil size by making it smaller. Right. Okay. So you can do a lot of facial expression already with these scenes, even without the nose and mouth doing anything. Alright, that's it for today. I hope it's not too long for you, and the assignment will be finished everything on both eyes. And so in the next class we can move on to the nose and the lip. Okay, see you next time.